Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Joining me today are Budget Secretary David Brinkley, Deputy Budget Secretary Mark Nicole, and Chief Legislative Officer Kiefer Mitchell. Tomorrow we will officially submit our FY 2022 budget to the Maryland General Assembly. In recent days, we have briefed the presiding officers and the minority leaders, and tomorrow morning we will do a briefing for all of the legislative fiscal leaders. No discussion of this year's budget can begin without first recognizing the enormous and unprecedented fiscal challenges that our state and our nation have faced as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Last March, while we were taking daily actions to save lives and livelihoods, state budget officials presented me with fiscal projections more dire than anything any of us had ever seen. The projections showed an immediate 50% drop in revenues and more than $7.5 billion in revenue losses, which would have wiped out all of the incredible economic progress that we were able to accomplish over the past 6 years. In an effort to avoid that fiscal crisis, back in March, I took immediate action, freezing all non-emergency COVID-related spending and directing the Department of Budget and Management to recommend cuts to all state agencies. I vetoed all legislation that required any significant spending increases. And then in May, we took immediate budget reductions to the Board of Public Works. On July 1st, the very first day of the new fiscal year, I pushed the board to approve a series of additional tough but targeted reductions. The combination of all of these early and aggressive actions, along with the more than $700 million in emergency economic relief which we pumped out into our economy, and the federal funding which we pushed for, secured, and deployed through the CARES Act, the Paycheck Protection Program, and the new COVID-19 relief bill, the federal bill, as well as all of the steps that we took to safely reopen Maryland's economy. All of those things have dramatically improved our state's fiscal outlook. Without all of those actions, the budget that we are presenting tomorrow would look radically different. Our economic recovery budget for FY 2022 will provide immediate, targeted emergency tax relief and economic stimulus to help struggling Maryland families and small businesses who need it the most. Our budget provides record investments in education, crime prevention, public health, and all of our key priorities. It also lays the foundation for a strong economic recovery for Maryland, while at the same time maintaining our commitment to fiscal responsibility. For the 7th straight year, our budget is 100% structurally balanced. We've accomplished this with no tax increases, without any layoffs or furloughs for hardworking state employees, and without cutting any essential services for Maryland's citizens. Consistent with the General Assembly's spending affordability requirements, this budget maintains the necessary reserves which will help preserve our AAA bond rating and which will allow us to remain prepared over the next few months, which we expect could be some of the most challenging of the pandemic, while also enabling us to provide important targeted relief to those who need it the most. All of the specific details of the budget will be released tomorrow when the budget is officially presented. But let me go through some of the highlights of our recovery budget. Our top legislative priority is the Relief Act of 2021, which this budget reflects. It provides more than $1 billion in immediate, targeted, emergency tax cuts and financial relief for Maryland families and small businesses who need it most, including immediate rebates to more than 400,000 low-income Marylanders who receive the Earned Income Tax Credit. It also permanently repeals the personal income tax on unemployment benefits and provides immediate sales tax cuts of up to $12,000 for more than 55,000 small businesses, enabling them to keep more money in their pockets, to keep their businesses open, and to keep more people on the payroll. In addition, our budget calls for reducing the tax burden on all of Maryland's retirees. This includes more than $1 billion in tax cuts to help every single retired Marylander, making it more affordable for people to stay and retire here in Maryland. Even though we're one of the best places to live in America, and we have so many great things going for us, we're losing many of our best citizens. People who've been lifelong Marylanders and have contributed so much and still have more to offer are moving to other states for one reason: our state's sky-high retirement taxes. This legislation will help keep tens of thousands of Maryland retirees from being forced to flee our state. In addition, we will expand the Hometown Heroes tax cut to exempt law enforcement, fire, rescue, corrections, and emergency response personnel from state tax on all retirement income specific to their service. And we will increase the tax exemption for all military retiree pensions. After a long and difficult year of sacrifice and struggle, my top economic priority is making sure that Marylanders can keep more of their hard-earned money in their pockets. The last thing that should ever be done in the middle of this pandemic would be to increase taxes on struggling families and small businesses. That would cause more suffering, and it would short-circuit Maryland's economic recovery. I've always believed that every single child in Maryland deserves a world-class education, regardless of what neighborhood they happen to grow up in. This is especially important now, when we are working to address the learning loss caused by the disruption of the pandemic, and as we continue our push to get all of our students back into the classrooms. For the 7th year in a row, we are providing historically high record funding for K-12 education. This budget invests a record $7.5 billion into K-12 education, which is $213 million above and beyond the education spending formulas proposed by the legislature. Their formulas would have actually significantly cut education funding due to significantly declining enrollment figures. But we are providing additional direct state investment to ensure that not only will every single penny that every single jurisdiction anticipates from the state for education be fully funded at 100%, but that in addition, every single school system in Maryland will once again see increased investment by the state. This is also the third budget that the casino lockbox allocates the casino revenue directly into the schools to supplement education funding. This puts an additional $375 million directly into our school systems without the need to raise any state or local taxes. In addition, we're also providing an additional $151 million for targeted tutoring grants in every local jurisdiction to support those students who are most at risk of learning loss. $53 million to expand full-day pre-K for every 4-year-old in the state, and $10 million to expand our highly successful Boost program, which provides scholarships for deserving students to attend non-public schools. Our capital budget will include a record $833 million in additional school construction funding, including the first year of our $3.6 billion initiative to fulfill every single one of the county funding requests. to bring every single one of the state's schools into the 21st century. This is the largest investment in school construction ever in Maryland history. No governor in the history of the state has ever invested more in K through 12 education. Our budget will also provide $411 million more for higher education projects, including funding for major projects at all of Maryland's HBCUs, which we once again continue to fund at record levels. We also provide record funding for our community colleges, which received funding for all of their top priorities. And we are once again taking action to help Maryland colleges and universities hold the line on tuition rates. Our 2022 capital budget continues our balanced approach for infrastructure with $1 billion more for roads and highways and $1 billion more for mass transit projects. We have invested far more in both roads and transit than any other administration in Maryland history. And once again, we are moving forward on nearly all of the highest priority infrastructure projects in every single jurisdiction all across our state, including the transformative Howard Street Tunnel project, which will dramatically increase the revenue at the Port of Baltimore and create tens of thousands of Maryland jobs. It's one of the most impactful economic development, job-creating projects in state history. On the environment, once again, we were able to fully fund Chesapeake Bay restoration efforts for the 6th straight year, and fully fund program open space and other land preservation programs for the 4th consecutive year. We're providing nearly $43 million for renewable energy programs. Another $14 million will be dedicated to energy efficiency programs, and we're committing $4 million to extend the currently expired zero emissions vehicle tax credit. This budget also tackles some of our most urgent public health and public safety priorities, including our efforts to address violent crime. We are providing $74.6 million to fund police aid to local governments. We're providing $43.7 million for direct local law enforcement grants, including $3 million to protect Marylanders against hate crimes. Our budget provides an additional $5 million for the 3rd year of our initiative to support crime prevention, prosecution, and witness protection efforts in Baltimore City. This budget provides nearly $250 million for community and residential operations to provide direct care services to youth and supports our comprehensive juvenile crime strategy to reduce the number of violent youth offenders in Baltimore City. And a record $9.6 million in savings are realized through our groundbreaking bipartisan Criminal Justice Reform Act to continue exploring evidence-based ways to decrease crime and reduce recidivism. And we are proposing a record $978 million for mental health and substance abuse programs to help combat the heroin and opioid epidemic and other mental and substance abuse disorders. This budget supports our ongoing response to the pandemic and ensures Marylanders continue to have access to health services, increasing funding for local health departments well above their grant formulas, fully funding and accelerating healthcare provider rate increases, expanding resources for developmental disability services, and expanding programs to provide in-home care for the elderly. If you had told me last spring, when we faced the prospect of a near fiscal Armageddon, that we would be able to introduce a budget that provides $1 billion in immediate tax and stimulus relief for struggling families and small businesses, that makes record investments in education, public health, and other key priorities, and which is structurally balanced without any tax increases, furloughs, or cuts to services, I would not have believed that it was possible. But that is exactly what we have been able to accomplish with this FY 2022 budget. I want to thank Budget Secretary David Brinkley, Deputy Secretary Mark Nicole and their team at DBM, and our entire team, all of our cabinet and their folks in all of the executive departments and agencies for all of their efforts and hard work in accomplishing this economic recovery budget. The submission of the budget tomorrow is the next step in the process, and we look forward to working together with the House and the Senate in a bipartisan and collaborative fashion to enact a final budget. It's our sincere hope in the middle of this state of emergency that they will be able to complete their work with all due urgency. This economic recovery budget and the Relief Act of 2021, with all of its immediate, emergency, tax, and stimulus relief, are far and away the most important things that the legislature must address right now as we continue our work to prevent more illnesses and deaths, to get our kids back in school, to mitigate the damage to our economy, and to bring about a robust health and economic recovery and eliminate and eradicate this pandemic. With that, I'd be happy to take a couple of questions.
So, Governor, how is it all possible? Maybe the Budget Secretary could explain what magic was done to do the impossible.
It wasn't magic. It was just all of the things that I laid out. We took early and aggressive actions. The revenues, our economy came back at a faster rate than anyone anticipated. We were able to keep 70% of our economy open throughout the entire pandemic. We opened up 100% of our businesses back in July. So the revenues are coming in at a better rate. We took some pretty serious cuts back in March and April and July. We received some federal funding help in a number of different tranches that came in with the CARES Act and with the Paycheck Protection Program. So it was a lot of hard work, a lot of belt tightening, and a little bit of luck, but maybe some magic. But we're happy to be able to do it.
Governor, Democrats will obviously say this isn't enough and there should be more in the budget. Where are you anticipating that to happen, and what would be your response?
I can't imagine they could possibly say that. After what I just went through with you, I mean, I would prefer they just said, this is fantastic. How fast can we get it passed?
Hogan, your budget, as you outlined, includes expanded education funding, pre-K, tutoring, and school construction. Those sound a lot like programs that the General Assembly passed that you vetoed and unveiled by the Kerwin and the Bill to Learn. So what gives?
Well, we've had this disagreement about, we've provided record funding. Last year we put in the largest school construction funding bill ever. They killed the bill. Last year, for 6 years in a row, we provided record funding for education, more than the legislative formulas called for. And we're continuing to do that, but we still don't agree with $4 billion more per year and massive tax hikes that would cost the average family $6,800 per year.
Earlier today, Senate President Ferguson said that the Senate will not move forward with the confirmation of your nominee for Health Secretary. What is your reaction to this?
I didn't hear what he said, but I think that would be a terrible mistake in the middle of this battle. The general that has led us through this incredible crisis, that built the 6,000 additional surge beds, that got the 6.4 million people tested, and that is now leading the charge on the vaccinations that we have to do 12 million of. I didn't hear his comments, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it would be the worst thing that they could possibly do.
Governor, speaking of vaccines, I wanted to ask you, moving forward to phase 1B or C next week, are you concerned about expanding the eligibility for people as you're getting fewer doses than expected from
Well, we're making those decisions, every week based on how the providers are getting the vaccinations done. So, as I mentioned in multiple press conferences, we first provided 100% of all the ones for 100% full hospitals and 100% capacity at the health departments and 100% uptake in all the local health departments. What we're finding is they are not getting them done fast enough. We don't want them to sit around. So we're opening it up much faster than we anticipated to get those vaccines put into more arms. But I said it's likely to switch in the coming weeks to, instead of why do you have so many, to why do you not have any left. But we're just trying to find that right spot. I think the president-elect is going to have some discussions hopefully in the coming days about increasing potentially the delivery of vaccines we get to us. But we're going to continue to keep taking the actions that we added additional private sector providers. We're talking about standing up mass vaccination sites, and now we've got 1.5 million people that are allowed to get the vaccine, which is 3 million vaccines. We only have 500, so certainly that's not enough. But we get about 70,000 every week. We also have the incoming president saying he's going to try to get 55 million more out into the states. So we're hoping that's true.
Why move forward with expanding more than
Because we had 300,000 that were still there that weren't being used for the first phases, and so we've said from the beginning we were going to be like Southwest Airlines. You're going to be first, but we're going to move to the next section and the next section. We're not going to stand for people not getting the job done. We're going to make sure they all get used.
Governor, so far missing from the discussion on the budget is the top line numbers, the general fund budget, the percentage increase year over year, the total fund budget and percentage increase. What are those numbers?
I think you're going to find out tomorrow when we submit the budget.
Why not just tell us now?
Because it wasn't part of my presentation.
Governor, we heard this.
We gave you a lot of stuff. Tomorrow you get to see.
There are a number of healthcare workers that are refusing the vaccine.
Yeah.
Because they don't trust it. What can the state do to get them to trust it?
Well, I think we're going to launch a major marketing campaign and try to get some trusted folks to get out there and help convince people that they need to take the vaccine. As I said at our press conference a couple times, we've repeated it. All the federal partners are saying it as well. If we can't get people to take the vaccine, we're not going to eradicate this virus, and we're not going to be able to get back to normal. So, it's a job not just for us, but for almost everybody. If we can't get people in the nursing homes and the hospitals to take, and in some of our communities to take the vaccine, then it's not going to be successful. So that's going to be a big part of our strategy. We're going to put time and energy and money into marketing the safety of the vaccine. It's why we visibly got our vaccines yesterday to show people that it was safe, and we're going to have multiple other people doing that for months to come.
Governor, can you talk about what sort of financial help you'd like to see coming from the federal government under an incoming Biden administration for state and local governments?
Well, I think I mentioned the CARES Act, Paycheck Protection, all that. We have gotten some help, but we did not get the direct help to state and local governments that we had hoped for, that the National Governors Association was pushing for. It was not included in the last stimulus. The Biden team says they are going to push for that, so we're looking forward to some direct assistance to state and local governments, which would be terrific. But they're also, I think, talking about more direct stimulus payments to help some of those folks. We've been digging into our funding to try to come up with ways to help, but more help from the federal government would be welcome. And I think we're going to see some of that detail roll out in the next few weeks. But again, he's going to have to get that through Congress, and I'm hopeful, but a little frustrated that it took us 8 months to get the last stimulus bill through Congress.
So there have been growth of teachers, and I know that they're included in phase 1B now as well. If teachers aren't returning to the classroom in person for the rest of this year right now, should they get some of these people to get a vaccine?
I'm not quite sure I followed you. If teachers are...
If teachers aren't returning to the classroom to teach for the rest of this year, should they be able to get their COVID-19?
No, we want to prioritize getting teachers back in the classrooms. I think it's something that the president-elect, it's what Bill Ferguson, who's a former teacher, who's the president of the Senate, everybody says getting kids back in the classroom as quickly as we can is the top priority. It's what our state superintendent has been pushing with all the counties. And the only reason we're trying to get teachers vaccinated quickly is so that they can get back in the classroom. And if they're not going to get in the classroom, we probably shouldn't be wasting a vaccine on them. But we're going to push to get everybody vaccinated and get the kids back in school. All right, thank you.